Bienvenidos a esta reunión de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de San Mateo-Foster City. Tenemos un intérprete para los participantes que necesitan traducción al español. Para escuchar la junta en español, presione el icono del mundo en su pantalla. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the San Mateo-Foster City School District Board meeting. Tonight is March 28th. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. We are convening to our regular meeting and we'll start with the flag salute. So please stand and join me for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
We will go to roll call. Trustee Trin. Here. Trustee Watkins. Here. Here. And I am here too. We'll go to item 2C is approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to pass tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks for the motion and Trustee Kim for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's 5 approvals. We'll go to item 2D, approval of the minutes from the February 22nd meeting. Thank you, Trustee Brooks for the motion and Trustee Trin for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes with 5 ayes. We will now go to item 3A, public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo-Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. We'll first go to the in-person audience for public comment.
Thank you, President Proctor. We do have Brian wants to speak on item 6A that's on the agenda, but we don't have any non-agenda items.
We on that one, Joe, do we have anyone on Zoom for this item?
Checking. At the moment, there are no public comments on Zoom.
Someone in the audience for this item. So why don't we take your comment now, and then if you want to circle back with a blue paper afterwards, we can do that. So come on up to the podium. This is non-agenda item, so okay, go for it.
So I am a parent at Fiesta Gardens International School, and I wanted to speak tonight because we've heard a rumor that they will be reducing the number of classes for potentially one of the grades next year, leaving us with 2 instead of 3 with a really giant class size. So I'm here tonight because a lot of parents are really concerned about this, and I just wanted to speak about particularly this current 3rd grade class. And COVID seems like a long time ago in many ways, but these kids didn't get a normal kindergarten year. They were in distance learning for most of it. Many of them learning a language that they were not familiar with. When they came back at the end of the year, we all know that that was not normal. When they came back in 1st grade, everybody was masked. Again, this is making it harder for them to learn because they can't see the mouth of the teacher and the people that they're working with. So they've just had disadvantage after disadvantage. And we feel like it's very unfair to then have them in a class with 30 next year when they're in 4th grade, as they're just starting to work on getting caught up with all of that learning loss. So we feel like we are hoping that there can be another way, if this is a budget issue, to save some money somewhere else so that these kids don't have to be put into a giant class when they're still working to get caught up. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take your, yeah. So why don't you come up and then, if you don't mind filling those out afterwards so that we can have your contact info. So we'll do, you can be next. And then I don't mean to point and say you, but I don't have your name. So you're next and then you're next. Go for it.
My name's Lorissa Kenny. I'm a literacy TOSA at Bayside Elementary, but I'm also a parent of students at Fiesta Gardens, and I have a middle schooler at Abbott. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Fiesta Gardens to kind of also advocate for taking a closer look at class sizes. One of the unique things about Fiesta Gardens is that it's a dual immersion program. So students don't typically matriculate in and out very frequently. And so it's a hardship when you get up into third grade and you have, you know, a certain amount of classes, because in our contract, it says, you know, in K to 3, you have no more than 27 unless, you know, there's negotiations around teachers getting compensated for students above that number, or maybe it's 28. And in 4-5, it goes up to 30 students per class. And there's a lot of research that's been done that shows that students who have smaller class sizes perform better overall. And that includes students who spend, you know, their elementary school career in smaller class sizes and then matriculate into larger middle school class sizes. They still outperform their peers. And you can reference research online. You can just search class size. There's lots of research that's been done. There's been research that's been done through Columbia University. To just kind of second what Sandy said, basically, is that these students spent kindergarten online. And then they came back in first grade wearing masks in small class sizes, kind of. And so I think that as we think towards moving into this next phase of post-COVID life in education, I think it's really important, especially at our magnet schools, that we kind of think about the students and think about when we're looking at budget and we're looking at hiring teachers or letting go of teachers, creating, you know, positions at the district level, directors, executive directors, POSAs, things like that. What does the data show us about those positions, which take large amounts of money to pay? How does that impact the students at that level and the teachers in the classroom? Because learning environments, teaching environments are also learning environments. And we are lucky to have teachers that stick around for long periods of time. We don't have a lot of brand new teachers that come in. And so if we have teachers to fill classrooms and to meet kids where they're at, I think we need to really focus in on that in terms of teaching and learning. So thank you.
My name is Daniela MTO. I am the mother of 2 children who go to Fiesta Gardens International School, a 3rd grader and a 1st grader. Diego, I met you last week when you came to speak at our school and discussed the transition that's coming up with our campus switch to College Park. And at that time, we were able to ask questions and get some general insight as to what's occurring and what's going on for next year so we can plan accordingly. And we asked you point blank if this was going to happen, and you assured us it wasn't. You even provided paperwork saying that it was not a possibility, that everything would remain the same. Our 3rd graders going into 4th grade would have 3 teachers. And it feels like we're getting started on the wrong foot, just moving forward, you know, just because that seems to be a different case now. So I'd really just like to address the situation at hand and kind of get to a better place moving forward so we can get excited about this upcoming transition to the new campus instead of feeling like we might have to be making arrangements for 4th grade next year. Thank you.
I think she's not done. Are you done? Item 3A.
Hi, I got here just in time. Dana Saham with Fiesta Gardens. I'm here to express some frustration to the board. I feel like the district has been trying recently to come talk to us, but as Daniela just said, a week ago, we were told that, fourth grade classes would not change next year. And then this week we learned that that is actually the plan. I am disappointed that we are trying our hardest to get the answers that we really need to make decisions. And when we do get them, they're incorrect or misstated or not true. It feels like it's creating a lack of distrust in our community. And that's really tough to deal with. All that said, on top of that, I don't think we should be affecting our current third graders, next year's fourth graders, the way we are. Our school is already facing so many changes, right? We're looking at expansion, we're looking at a campus swap, we're looking at construction. That's a lot for everyone to go through. I would hope that you would reconsider making 2 classes so large for students that have already been through so much, considering they started during the pandemic online. So please reconsider this decision and please try to be completely honest with us because we're trying really hard. There are a lot of emotions and everybody wants to rally around Fiesta Gardens and see it really thrive in the coming years. Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? Check one more time on Zoom for this one since we kind of rushed through Zoom.
President Watkins, there are 4 raised hands at the moment.
Okay. You said 4? Or did you say none?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to that. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. First speaker is Karen Thistleweight. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karen Thistlethwaite. I am a Fiesta Gardens parent. I have a 5th grader, Sienna, and a 3rd grader, Colin. I've been a part of the school district for a very long time, and I just went on the Abbott tour. My concerns with what is happening right now between Fiesta and the district is there seems to be a high value on inclusion and listening and getting along. And yet at every single turn, there is confusion and mistrust and lack of integrity and transparency. When I went on this tour, there were people that had been told that that the 6th grade class will be the last class at Abbott. That seemed to be news to the principal at Abbott, to the assistant principal at Abbott, the teachers at Abbott. And this again is something that we were told 2 years ago, that this class would be the last one. Having both a 5th grader now, and going through all of that drama of where do our kids go, something that's still playing out, of having to choose between being with friends who are going to Abbott Spanish immersion, being with friends that are going to Fiesta Spanish immersion, and then all of the other English options is confusing enough. And now that same group is being told that our kiddos are reducing from 3 classes to 2. There are already classroom management issues with this grade. And that is, again, because of COVID. They have not had enough time to learn how to get along. There's a ton of neurodiversity in a Spanish immersion school, and then 2 languages. So how are classrooms that are already struggling because of these issues, not because of the teachers, how is that going to work while adding 10 more kids to the class? That is something I'm confused about. I do not see how it's going to benefit our kids. And then again, we're hearing 2 weeks ago, we are not going to do this. Don't worry. Everything is going to be fine. We're going to have 3 classrooms. Now we're hearing 2 classrooms. Well, now we don't know. So again, we're going through a cycle of being told something being told something else, and then having a lot of uncertainty. And quite frankly, that is not what we need as a community. It's not what we need as a school district, and it certainly isn't what we need as parents and kids. I would love to find a way that we can do the restorative practices that I just saw at Abbott, not just for our students, but as adults, that we can learn to build trust, restore trust, and bring more integrity and transparency to this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marcela Cardoza McCollum. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I have spent 10 years in this district, 10 years at Fiesta Gardens. I've contributed hundreds of hours of time and heart, and I have always done my best to support the district in its endeavors. I have joined any committee I've been invited to. I participate at the district level and the school level. And one of the committees I had the opportunity to participate in was our master plan for Fiesta Gardens in 2020. I was really excited to have it displayed because as a couple of the trustees that are still on the board know, I had the opportunity to be there when our most recent school that was expanding K-8 presented before the board, asked for concrete support, and the board supported that expansion. So I was excited that we were going to have the opportunity to have that discussion. I asked for it in 2020 before we had our new superintendent. I asked for it in 2021. I asked for it in 2022. And finally in 2023, we began to talk about this process. In that conversation with district employees, I asked us for a TOSA, just like our most recent program had, and was told, what a good idea. I asked about teacher and parent support and was told, what a good idea. But this starting in August, month after month, we have been presented with a lack of information, a lack of meaningful and timely information, and then sometimes, as you've just heard, contradictory information. So I'm really disappointed. I'm really frustrated to see the lack of communication and poor connection. You have heard it from incoming 4th grade parents. Superintendent has heard it from many incoming 6th grade parents. And until recently, those current 5th grade parents feel ignored. My heart is at Fiesta Gardens. I was really excited to keep my 5th grader there and help build that new program. I was willing to roll with the lumps and the bumps and ready to commit my time and energy. And the lack of information, what feels like a lack of respect for our families and a lack of support and contradictory information is disheartening. I am not saying that we have been 100% ignored. I am saying that the information that we need has not been provided in a timely or functional or reasonable manner. You heard from Karen, you heard from Sandy, you heard from multiple people that this is an issue. This was an issue last year when Superintendent Ochoa asked us families to wait and not talk about this potential expansion. And then there was a great deal of confusion at the beginning of the year when we had a new principal, which caused challenges within the grades and schools. This happened based on a lack of information, a lack of clarity, and what feels like a lack of concern. I echo Karen's comments that we talk about restorative practices within the school, but we've been asking the superintendent to come to our site multiple times since August, and last week was the very first time that he came to speak with us. I don't know how else to share this because there are multiple emails that have gone to the district that have gone unanswered. And so I appreciate that we're getting support now. It feels like too little, too late. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I did not hear. Did you call Rachel Roach?
Yes, Rachel, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for letting me speak. I am a proud Fiesta Gardens parent. I have 2 2nd graders and a 5th grader, and I've heard other parents comment, so I will try my best not to repeat what has been shared. But just so everyone in the room and everyone that's listening is aware, the plan to have 6th grade at Fiesta Gardens next year is not a new plan. There is a large group of us that have been talking about this for over 2 years. And at the beginning-ish of last school year is when a group of us started to meet with the then Directora Ramirez and Superintendent Ochoa. So this is not something that just came up this year. So I don't know if everyone knows that. So I wanted to mention that. And similarly to what was already shared, I'm very disappointed and very frustrated with the lack of planning and the lack of foresight by the district. We all know we have a new principal, and when he was approached about this topic in August, about the plan to have 6th grade, he knew nothing about it. So that is a huge red flag that we have a new principal come on board, and no one at the district thought to tell him, hey, by the way, in addition to the fact that Fiesta is going to transition to K-8, it's going to be a community school, it's going to switch campuses, we're also adding on a 6th grade. That is a very important piece of information that he should have gotten. So that is extremely surprising and upsetting. And I don't understand why parents are told things, I wouldn't say promised, but people look at us in the eyes and tell us this is going to happen, this is going to happen, oh yes, this is going to happen, and then almost none of it happens. I think we're missing out on a great opportunity to create more community at Fiesta and have a legit 6th grade class. And this whole thing has been handled so poorly, and the lack of planning, the lack of information is completely jeopardizing the possibility to have a strong, meaningful 6th grade class at the school. So it's very disheartening, and it's actually really sad that the district did not make this more of a priority and didn't follow through with what they said they were going to do in all the meetings that we had last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Elana.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Elana Parsons, and I am a Fiesta parent. We are absolutely committed to Fiesta. We have 3 current students, a 5th grader, a 3rd grader, and a 1st grader. And we absolutely have had a pleasant experience up to this point. We love the community, we love the school. And in recent, I guess, and within the last year, it's just been very confusing, very, there's a lack of transparency regarding things that are going to happen. And my most recent concern is regarding the 6th grade transition and the 4th grade combination of from 3 classrooms to 2 classrooms. I'm really, really concerned that increasing a class size from 20 students to 30 students, 10 more in a class, will really jeopardize the impact of the students' ability to learn. That it will make it more difficult for the teachers to be able to actually provide instruction and for the students to actually learn and just class management issues with a size of 30. So I'm really, really concerned. I really hope that you would consider our concerns, and that this is something that could be still discussed, or that there's still some possibilities of really looking at the implications of these decisions for our 6th graders, for our 4th graders, and just for the future of our school. I would just really ask that you guys consider these decisions and, take in consideration these students. We know it's not a huge number of students, that it's, in comparison to the district, it's, it's probably a small problem, but for us, it's our children, it's our teachers, it's our community. And so we just ask that there at least be more discussions with us, more clarity about the plans and, how we can continue to support the students, the teachers. We're very willing. So that's just my points, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Last speaker
Is Maestra Constan. Please go ahead.
for giving me some time to speak. I am one of the current fourth grade teachers, and hearing that our class sizes next year would increase to 30 was a little bit nerve-wracking for me, because I currently have 37 or 27, excuse me, and it's fairly difficult as it is already, especially because some of them are behavior issues, some of them are IEPs and need extra help, extra time. So myself with 27 kids is really difficult, and I spread myself very thin. And the year before I had 20 kids. So it went from really manageable and fairly difficult and being really exhausted every day. And to go from having two teachers, or from three teachers to two teachers, is also kind of disheartening, because three teachers working together as a team, which we do, we always collaborate together, we always work together. We won't be working together and giving our input. For 30 kids in there, there's barely enough room for 27 right now. So I ask that you please reconsider combining it down to two classes, because there's no room. It's really hard to manage a class that large, and to not have the support between the three teachers it will make it really difficult as well. Thank you.
There are no more public comments.
Here in the audience, so we'll call up Jessica. Yeah, over here.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Thanks for joining us.
So I know there's been a lot of different points made. I think one of the ones that I have to bring up is how this will affect fourth grade classes across all schools throughout the district in terms of the current class sizes and what that means. And it feels, knowing how having friends and having kids in the same grades in other schools, it feels like this would be kind of just very much a Fiesta Gardens problem in terms of the class sizes that we have. And it seems to be one of the few schools that can turn into these bigger size fourth grade classrooms or classes that would maybe not impact other schools in the same way. That being said, Fiesta Gardens is this grade in particular, and I don't know if other parents have spoken about this, but this class in particular has been among the most targeted, not intentionally by the district, right? Like during COVID, they had no control over that they were the class that was in kindergarten. But then there's a way to kind of help them. And this school particularly with the immersion program, really speaking to smaller class sizes, Maestra Constant letting it be known that even physically fitting the kids into the classroom is going to be really hard. So then to add over 30 just feels like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's like how many, on the one hand, these kiddos, they were left out because they didn't get kindergarten, and then they go into first grade, and it's very difficult in this immersion program with the masks, listening, being able to understand the language, being able to speak it. It puts them kind of at a deficit, and then they catch up again. And all of the support that's currently in place to catch kids up, I shouldn't say all of it, but a lot of it feels like it's very much K through 2. These are current third graders. Also the other point is that this is going to be the first graduating class of Fiesta at the new campus. So their entire fifth grade year is going to be kind of a big, massive shift. It just feels like there's a way to help these kids. And we're talking about one teacher at one school. And I have, and on the whole throughout this entire, and usually whenever I speak here, I speak it for the kids at large, all of the kids at the district. But this school, these kids, the ones whose parents can't get here, they need to have that extra support, and it's that single teacher that's going to make the difference. And so, you know, however that needs to come from the budget, whether it's the half TOSAs that are going to be provided with this new 6th grade class that's going to be there, then that time gets splitting that time as the additional 4th grade teacher. I think that it's really important, and I just needed to, you know, I just wanted to bring up that how is this impacting other schools in the way that it's impacting Fiesta Gardens? Because this school in particular just seems to be getting a lot of changes, and these kids who are here at this school and the parents who, this class in particular, I'm sorry, I'm kind of overwhelmed, so I'm not getting my words out clearly, but this class in particular, like there's a way to kind of help support them instead of just continuing that to give them obstacles to overcome. And it just feels, yeah, sorry, time's up.
Okay, we will move on to item 3B. Public statements related to agenda items, persons will be called on at the appropriate time. Item 3C, Foundation Committee and PTA Council reports. Do we have anyone from the Education Foundation that would like to make a report? Or PTA Council? If not, we can go to committee reports. Anyone? Okay.
Foundation, okay.
Please.
But sorry, let me pull up this. So we had a meeting on March 12th, reviewing financials, and the Education Foundation is planning a fundraising event with Harlem Wizards. It's a basketball, basically a basketball game that's like Harlem Globetrotters, but like I want to say their minor league team, something like that. So that should be really fun and exciting. Let me see. Yeah, so we just, kind of looked at the finances that were finalized after the readathon, and did well with that. And then that's the main thing. There's some grants that are that the foundation is applying for. I think Measure K grant, and they're working with Camp Galileo again this year to send over 70 kids to camp this summer from the district. So that's what we got.
Any other reports? Okay, we will go to 3D, CSEA and SMFCAA updates.
Good evening, board members. Before I give the rest of my report, I want to address a few of the comments that were made today. I really hope that here, SMFCSD has been mentioning over and over again that our district lacks transparency and communication. And I hope that the comments that you heard tonight from our parents and our community members really illustrate that this communication issue is something that drastically needs to be addressed. I wanted to make that clear. Since we had our last board meeting, we have our first and second round of negotiations. We were pleased with the optimistic turn on the second day and look forward to meeting again on our new April date. All of us SPEDA members will be participating in district-wide professional development tomorrow, and we're hoping for a productive day. We're pairing that with a hygiene drive. So we're showing up with our toiletries and items to deposit and be delivering those to later this year, later in April, to the Samaritan House to help benefit our community. I'd like to, this is breaking news, extended invitation to our elected officials on April 20th. We just got the date and the invitation ready. The Golden Gate Service Center is going to be hosting what's known as used to be known as the school board breakfast, only now it will be the elected official breakfast. You'll be receiving invitations from me probably tomorrow to helps build connections between CTA members, which there'll be SMETA members there present, and their elected officials. So that, be ready for my invitation to that. And after this, I just want to say, I know pretty much everyone is looking forward to spring break, and we wish everyone a happy and safe one. Thank you.
We have someone from CSEA. Online.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi guys, how are you? My name's Brianne Bishop from the CSEA, and I am here to give your update. Good evening. The CSEA is appreciative of the recent moves in the M&O department, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to settle negotiations with the district soon for our classified staff. Additionally, on this eve of spring break, for student and 10-month employees, we'd like to wish everyone a restful and rejuvenating spring break. And that is all I have for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
SMFCAA updates.
I am not very tech savvy, so I'm going to try to share my screen. I might need your help. I've got my post-it from Diego. I'm there. I see that. And here's my presentation, but what do I do? Oh, I see. I'm already on the wrong screen. Just give us a minute. Do I hit share screen?
Hit share screen, right? And you
Thanks,
select,
Patrick.
and then where's your, so we go on desktop, and then you'll click on this.
I warned you, Joe. I
Share.
did warn
And
you
then
that
you're gonna pick which one do you want to share?
it's the lead owl screen on this thing.
Here?
No, it's right there, that one. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Thanks for teamwork.
Over,
Yeah, just present.
Cool. Present. See, I'm an HP guy, and I'm on a Mac here, so I'm kind of struggling. Present.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. My name is Natalie Delahunt. I'm the principal at Lead Elementary, and I'm going to share just a little bit about Lead and some of the things we've done this year. I'm going to highlight 3 things that we've done. So, welcome to the board. Hello, board and assistant superintendents and superintendent. So we've done, I think, 3 unique things at Lead this year that I'm going to share with you. The first one is some LPAC testing. We this year, for the first time, are doing our own LPAC testing in-house. So if you know anything about LPAC testing, it's how we check English language proficiency. And in October, the teachers came and said, we would really like to do this ourselves. We think it would be really beneficial for our population if a trusted adult, namely their teacher or perhaps a TOSA, gave the exam to our students. We just think that comfort level will produce some good results. So we started from October planning this out. And when I spoke to the multilingual team here, everybody at the district was on board with that for a little bit of a different reason, that the teachers would be able to see what was on the test, not to teach to the test, but to understand the nuance of the LPAC test. So we started planning it out, and we agreed that 1 teacher per grade level would do the Moodle to do that. And it's a long Moodle, it's about 4 hours. And they would be in charge of per grade level doing it. And so it's been a learning curve, but we did it. We're just about done. Most of the kids are done. And we're really excited to see the results. I think it's going to take a couple years to really see the results, mainly because I want all the teachers, well, they want to eventually all learn and do the Moodle 1 year at a time so that everyone will get a chance to see what it takes to understand the LPAC test and try and be proficient taking that test. So that's one of the things we've done this year. And it's been challenging, but really, I think, beneficial for everybody. So that's the LPAC test we've done. Next up, oh, this has been really fun. I think the video, hopefully it won't play, but you can see. Okay, great. So this has been brought about. That's a little video. We have a welcoming committee at LEAD. So we are a school that we get new folks starting every week, pretty much. We just had a TKR start this week. So our enrollment isn't just in the beginning of the year, all year long. And so my student service TOSA and our community service specialist really wanted to work with creating a way for all of our students to feel welcome any time of the year that they come. And they actually worked with our student council. That's one of our student council representatives to figure out how to make kids feel welcome. And it actually starts the night before. They get a video sent to their email in either Spanish, Portuguese, and there's another language, English, and we're working on other languages as well, whatever we need. So they get an email the night before welcoming them. The class, the day before, gets a little slide deck that we've created saying we're getting a new student tomorrow, this is their name, here's what we know about them. So then they get to school and they are greeted in the office by either student representatives or the students' TOSA and student service TOSA or our community specialist. And then they are walked to class, and in front of the class, there's a little sign there. You can see it above that child's head that says, welcome so-and-so to our school. And then they walk in and there's another slide deck welcoming the class, and they have an activity it's like a get to know you activity that they do every time we get a new student. So it's just a nice way to welcome our students onto campus. So really proud of that work that we are doing to welcome our new classmates. And this last one is just a little bit of fun, but so this is just about building capacity in teachers and faculty members. Every year for a while now, I've done Black History Month, where we put a slide deck up in the morning, and a student comes, usually a student from the Black community, will come to my office, and over the loudspeaker, they will read about the Black hero of the day. So this one day we did George Crumb. And for those of you who don't know, George Crumb invented the potato chip. So we did George Crumb, and a student read about George Crumb. And I went out at recess and I saw two of my TOSAs talking and placing this giant order from Instacart. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're getting potato chips. I'm like, what? And sure enough, it's Instacart. Within an hour, this man is rolling up with a giant cart, 16 bags of Lay's. And he says to me, what is this? Why am I bringing chips? And I explained to him about George Crumb. And the TOSAs wanted the kids to have this added experience about eating potato chips on the day that they learned about George Crumb. And so this is the kind of thing that when I was still in the classroom, I would have loved to have done that, but I don't have the capacity to do that anymore. But the teachers are now, this is one example, one small moment of things that are happening at LEAD. Their capacity, they are taking things to another level. And it warms my heart, and it just makes me so happy. And really, it's all about small moments with the kids. Like, they may not remember, those little learners, they're not going to remember all those slide deck and some of the stuff they did, but they're going to remember the day the TOSAs came around and gave chips, and they ate chips when they learned about George Crumb. And they won't ever forget now, George Crumb. So it was just one of those really joyful moments at LEAD. And I was just really touched by seeing that in action, that capacity building in the teachers. And they're just such a wonderful staff. So here's our staff. We are amazing circles, and they are just a great group of folks who work so hard for our students every single day. And I couldn't be more proud to be there. So I know that was way more than 2 minutes, but the other principal isn't here, so I took time. Thank you. And I'm going to stop sharing. I think I can figure that out. Yes, okay. All right, thank you.
We're going to go to item 3E, announcements.
History Month. That's all I got.
Yes. Okay, so I have one announcement. So we've changed the meeting format a little bit over, I guess, I don't know when we changed it, but we used to do closed session at the beginning. And so I have some sad news I wanted to share. And I think we had talked about closing the meeting with this information, but because we do closed session at the end now, we close our meetings just with a few of us. So nobody's usually here. So I was going to do this now. And we'll do a moment of silence, but I wanted to just read the statement and share some sad news. And since we just talked about lead, this kind of goes with it. But our San Mateo-Foster City School District family was deeply saddened to hear of the passing of our lead elementary school teacher, Grace Poon. Grace joined our district in August of 2016 as a fourth grade teacher. The next year, Grace became a kindergarten teacher at Lead and continued to teach and inspire our kindergartners each year thereafter. Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of Lead kindergarten teacher Grace Poon. So we'll take a moment of silence in her honor. Okay, we will tonight when we adjourn the meeting, we will also adjourn the meeting in her honor, but thank you for sharing that moment with us in her honor, but we'll go on for tonight to item 3F for the superintendent report.
Thank you, President Proctor. Definitely want to thank our families for coming tonight and speaking to us. And I'll be reaching out to Fiesta Gardens families soon. Also want to thank SMETA and CSEA for their remarks tonight. Definitely agree, feeling just positive and moving forward with the work that we're doing at the table with both groups. It's pretty easy to see why we're so excited about having Natalie Delahunt over at Lead Elementary School. You know, when she came on to the district, she said, you know, I want to work at a school like Sunnybray or Lead, right? Because she's from the neighborhood. I said, well, we don't know how things turn out sometimes. We're going to wait to see what happens here. But you know, she shows the heart and she shows the care for the work that she does. And I know she just, you know, so connected with the folks that work at Lead. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for sharing tonight. I do want to thank our principals and staff at Beach Park and Foster City and Fiesta Gardens for hosting members from our community that came out. We were able to have representatives from Music for Minors, representatives from the YMCA, the city of San Mateo, the city of Foster City, both police departments, probably, I didn't get an exact count, but probably 30 or so people from our community all together that came out to visit classrooms, to see students in action, to see our new facilities. And then when we do that, we open up a conversation with our community about how the work that we do goes across all of our campuses, and you see the threads of work and goals and strategies, and you see them in San Mateo, you see them at schools in Foster City. So it's a really great time to do that. And then also just want to thank the principals at George Hall and Sunnybray, as well as the families and many community members who came out staff and community that came out to cut some ribbons yesterday, because we have some, for George Hall, it's been in place for a long time, but for Sunnybury, I think they may have taken the fences down just on Monday, maybe. And so to be in those spaces and to have the community come out and celebrate, you know, the achievement of putting physical spaces in our campus that our educators and our families can be drawn to do the important work that they do. It's a big celebration, and we have lots of work going on at LEAD, as the staff and principal will tell you, and also at Meadow Heights, and also at Highlands, and also at Burrell, and Bowditch. I'm not going to forget Bowditch, but so many schools with projects underway, and I'm very much looking forward to our next set of ribbon cuttings. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll have my glasses on. Okay, thank you. Item 4A is, item 4 is the proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time. Are there any board members that would like to pull any items from this consent agenda? Well, I think we should, if you have a question or comment, we should probably pull it unless it's like a general one or something.
Just want to clarify, if we approve the consent items, if I passed on some clerical notes, will those be?
Do you want to turn your microphone on, maybe?
So the item in question is item 4A19. I think I passed on some clerical notes to the district staff. I just want to clarify, if we approve the consent agenda, will that item be modified after the fact as part of our approval?
So if there are grammatical errors in the recommendation or in the item title, we should correct those now. If they're in, let's say if you have an MOU or a contract and it's, you know, whatever the detail, I'm not sure what the grammatical error is, but whatever it is, as we move forward in the work with whichever company or with whatever organization we have that agreement with, we can make those changes, but not to the language of the item or to the recommendation of the item.
I wouldn't characterize the edits as material, but they were just clarifications or typos or other issues like that that I passed along. So I'm not sure if folks have had a chance to review those comments, whether or not that would qualify for a pulled item or whether or not that would fall in the regular course.
I would say just for the purpose of this conversation, we pull it and then we can go through what the recommendations are. And then I think distinguish between a typo or something that's more material, and we can go through that.
You want to tell me what items they are?
4A19.
4A19. Anybody else on the board that wants to pull anything? Audience want to pull any items? Joe, can you check if anyone on Zoom would like to pull any items from proposed consent agenda, please?
If any Zoom audience members would like to pull an agenda item, please raise your hand and let us know which item you would like to have pulled. President Proctor, I have one raised hand, Marcella Cardosa McCollum.
Hi, I'd like to pull C2, please.
Which one?
C2. Engage New York Zern math curriculum.
Okay, we'll see you. So we have 4A19 and 4C2.
Motion to approve consent agenda with the exception of 4C2 and 4A19.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Consent agenda, with the exception of 4A19 and 4C2 has passed unanimously. So we'll now circle back to 4A19 and we'll go to Trustee Kim.
Doctor, as I said, the comments I had on this resolution were not necessarily material, but I did notice a number of typos that may affect the meaning. For example, I believe on the second page in the middle whereas clause, there is minor additions to existing schools that do not increase student capacity by more the 25% or 10 classrooms. There's a few other edits like that that change the meaning of the sentence because of those typos, especially for resolutions that are entered into our record. I would advise, I think the district has sent a few other comments, missing S's, tense changes, minor issues, but that was the only one that might actually affect the meaning of the sentence. I think elsewhere it's clarified what that meaning is, but just wanted to flag that minor clerical error on that piece as well. And I think my written comments I submitted earlier, I don't have anything more to add to those.
Thank you, Counselor. I feel like we're in court. Appreciate it. Do we? Guilty. Guilty. Scared. Okay. So should we will somebody update that or scared? Okay. So I guess are there any questions or other comments on this item from the board? Okay, do we have any public comment on this item in the audience? Okay. Any Zoom public comment on 4A19?
Thank you, President Proctor. There are no raised hands at the moment.
Maybe pending like your.
So I guess the motion to approve item 4A19 pending the changes that were flagged earlier in writing.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Kim, for the motion and Trustee Brooks for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. 4A19 passes unanimously. We'll now go to 4C2, which is approve the purchase of Engage NY Zern math curriculum instruction materials for elementary school. Do we have any sort of information we need to know about this one before we go dive into this one?
We've provided for you there the quote for the purchase. It's two items or two kinds of materials. One is the digital licenses that we use for students to access the online materials, and then the hard copy workbooks that are part of the Zern curriculum.
Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? Okay. Any public comment here in the room? All right, let's go to Zoom for public comment. I think we have Marcella for sure.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Marcella, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I had kind of clarifying question comment about this one, and this is one that I actually have had a brief conversation with Assistant Superintendent Chambliss. My understanding is that Zern was purchased almost as kind of an emergency tool to use during COVID. And I know that the district takes very seriously the adoption of materials. What I have heard from students, from teachers, from a variety of spaces is that the Zern online program may not be meeting the excellent expectations that our district has. So I'm curious about if, since COVID, it has gone through the same stringent adoption process that I know our district takes for all of the other curriculum that we utilize in the district. And if not, is that a conversation? Because I know this contract is for the next 2 years. So is that a conversation that could happen? I was surprised actually to see Zern pop back up one more time in our space. I know we needed it during COVID, but I'm curious about the feedback that the district has received about Zern as a math tool in the district. Thank you.
Comments?
David, do you want to respond to that question, please? Thank you.
Marcella, yes, we are definitely aware of the concerns that teachers and parents have raised with us. So we are definitely, incorporating that feedback into the work that our math team is doing in support of the Zern curriculum. One is, you are correct that was a curriculum that was implemented at a moment when we did not have an online math resource. And so we adopted that primarily because the Engage New York curriculum is quite a strong curriculum and very highly rated, and continues to be so. Our team has been, ever since then, working to develop around that curriculum a set of instructional practices and curriculum guidance that we think extend the quality of our math instruction. So in that respect, the materials themselves are only one part of what we describe as math teaching and learning in our district. So we certainly stand behind the recommendation to continue to use the curriculum, and of course would continue to hear any feedback about how its use is going. I would add that at the time that at this moment when we might consider the question of piloting an adoption, we're probably all aware of the fact that the state has just gone through a very comprehensive and rather public debate about math and the math framework in our state, and has finally completed the guidance for the state going forward for the next 8 years. We actually need to give time for that framework to sort of be absorbed by the publishing community, and that new materials will be coming out shortly that are aligned with that math framework. In the meantime, we feel very confident about how Zern does actually speak to the priorities that are in that new framework. And it would actually be not only, it'd be costly and premature for the district if we went through a pilot and adoption process now, while we're waiting for new materials to come out that are even more tightly aligned with that math framework. So we're in a moment here where we just need to let that system work its way through. And I would anticipate working with our teachers in the next few years that we would enter into a pilot and adoption process. But in the meantime, we need to provide continued and I would call consistent math instruction for our students. So that's why we're proposing the adoption, or not the adoption, but the purchase of these materials for 2 more years.
I was just thanking him, but that's all I have left.
No, thank you, Marcella, for raising, and thank you, David, for the explanation. I think it's definitely an important conversation. I had a follow-up, which is in terms of, what's the timeline usually for the release of kind of new curriculum associated with like the pathways that they're developing now, or the framework?
Typically, it's a 2-year process. So the framework just came out, so we would expect, sort of January 2026 that we would start seeing materials.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's a balance too between, rolling out new programs, et cetera, and professional development that comes with that, and asking folks to do a lot, and also ensuring there's buy-in. So obviously COVID was a unique circumstance in terms of, needing to kind of pivot quickly and not necessarily follow all of the exact same processes and procedures that we may have in the past. I was asking about timeline because I was wondering, does it make sense to do 1 year versus 2 years, if this was something that was going to be coming out more quickly? So that was just like something I was kind of thinking about, and how that would change kind of the contract and all of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just given that timeline that, we can't expect materials probably for another 2 years, we should stay the course.
David, I just have a follow-up item. So I think this is something that we've discussed previously, but I just want to flag for public benefit. This comment we received about Zurn, we've also heard about ST Math, we've heard about our literacy programs. I think especially as we talk about these fiscal headwinds that we're facing as a district, there's a lot of concern across the board about whether or not these are the best ways to use our funds. And I know the district takes this question very seriously. Even if some of these measures or programs were adopted during COVID, under very special circumstances, there's a process in place to evaluate them to make sure that there's still the best investment, that the cost benefit still works out for us. Just for public benefit, I feel like it'd be helpful to understand partly, I guess, how you measure success for these programs. I think from a lot of parents, especially because I work so closely with the PTAs, the comment we hear is, my child didn't benefit from this particular program. They might have benefited from this other one, but not this one. But they understand, there might be other students or other schools where this is having a greater impact. So how do we define success internally as a district when we're studying all the statistics from these programs? And what is our cycle for sunsetting, understanding that we can't keep switching programs up every year? At the same time, if any of our teachers or parents feel that they're being forced to use a subpar product because we signed a long-term contract, it just kind of deteriorates the kind of faith that we're trying to build. So if you could provide on a very high level, because I know we have other items to cover, kind of our internal process, I feel like that will help restore some faith that this is a question that's ongoing and constantly being evaluated, as opposed to something that we vote on once and just kind of exists in the ether.
Sure, I welcome the opportunity. I mean, the main way we look at the quality of the curriculum and the quality of instruction that's going on in general is through our state and district interim assessments. So we look at that very closely to see what kind of progress we've shared with you, particularly most recently the math interim assessment results, which actually we're seeing some very nice progress, particularly with key equity groups that are very important to our strategic plan. In addition, I just really want to come back to the emphasis that when we get feedback, oftentimes some of the most recent feedback about the Zurn curriculum is particularly around the opportunities that students who move through the curriculum quickly have to do extension or enrichment activities. And that's really where, as I mentioned, coming back and our math team is hearing that and looking at the ways in which we can tap both the resources that are in Zurn and the resources that are outside Zurn with tasks, for example, that we pull from SVMI and other kinds of resources that we can make available to students who really get the basic concept on any given day pretty quickly and need some opportunity to go deeper. So, we need to continue to hear the feedback from families if that's not getting traction, if they're not seeing those kinds of tasks and activities, because that's one of the responsibilities of our team is to make those modifications or additions to the curriculum. And then, we are in a moment where what we use to evaluate the quality of the curriculum is the guidance that's provided by the state and that math framework. And we've just gone through a transition to a new framework. We could sit down with that framework and probably find ways in which the Zurn curriculum doesn't meet elements of the new curriculum, the new framework, but we are in a moment where we have to wait until we actually see other materials that come out that can do so. I'd love to assure the community that we always are in constant conversation about this, and most importantly, are looking at those outcome assessments to see how we're doing. And that's the basis for our judging or evaluating the curriculum.
It's very helpful. And one thing I would add that was covered in our last meeting for those who weren't able to attend is just the fact that we do have community service specialists and others on staff, especially for the take-home programs, to help increase adoption and to track usage and to really work directly with parents to make sure that we're taking full advantage of those tools. And I think, again, a lot of the concerns that I heard from some parents is that the fear is that we're paying for these programs and no one's opening them. And the fact that we are proactively, putting hours behind that to make sure, especially the students who need it most, have access to resources, understand how to use it, that we're dealing with the kind of technological limitations that some of their parents and families may have. I think it was very helpful to know that at least, for these resources, especially in the environment that we currently find ourselves, that we are doing our most to maximize the value for our students. So thank you all for the work you guys do on that.
Great, thank you. Then this will need a vote for C2.
For C2.
Trustee Trin for the motion and Trustee Brooks for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 4C2 passes unanimously. We will move on to item 5A. Ratify the 2023-2024 second interim financial report.
Glad to share some information with you tonight. Blanca is going to join us as well too. So thank you to Blanca and her team for all the tremendous work they do in compiling this information for us. And again, this second interim report is really intended for it to be an item for the whole community to understand our financials and to understand issues that positively and potentially negatively impact us financially, and look at some of the trends. We've captured some of that in the narratives. We're going to walk through a little bit of that information with you tonight. We're going to share the slides with you here too really quickly. And as I heard the superintendent speaking to earlier too about some of the great things that are happening out there right now. We spent time this week. I spent time with several of you out there looking at spending time at ribbon cutting ceremonies, which were great. We had some wonderful conversations with our colleagues about transparency, about some of the financial information that's impacting our district. And let me see if I can start from the beginning here. If it starts, is that, yeah, you'll see that good. So had the privilege of being in several classrooms this week and just remarkable work that's going on with our teams. Met with, I appreciate the CSEA comments. We've been working a lot with the teams out there, driving for change and implementing change. So that's been an inspiration as well too. It's been a great use of our time. And the second report, we're going to spend time in the upcoming weeks too. We talked about, so are folks talking about Fiesta Gardens tonight too. And this month we're submitting our plans for the new school in north of Fiesta Gardens North to DSA. And in order to build that structure, we'll be selling bonds in the upcoming months. And before we sell bonds, we go through an exercise with rating agencies. We spend time with Standard & Poor's and Moody's and Fitch, and we talk to the folks on Wall Street about our district. And similar to the exercise we go through tonight with the board and the community, we go through this exercise with the rating agencies as well too. And they want to have a conversation about a lot of different factors. On a really positive note, our district has the highest bond rating you can have as a district of our size. And so there's a direct impact to those of you who live in the community. When we pass bond measures, you can think of like a mortgage, that the higher your bond rating, the less you're going to pay for the money that you get from the community, right? So having a very positive rating is really important instrument for the district and for the community. And again, it's great to have these conversations with these folks who want to understand what's happening in our district. And we talk about both subjective factors and we talk about objective factors. On the objective side, they go through the same financials in front of you tonight. And on the subjective side, they talk about and want to know about things like programs that Dave was talking about a little while ago too. They want to talk about labor relations. They want to talk about contracts. They want to talk about initiatives. And I'm always happy to sing like a canary at these meetings with these folks, because there's so much going on in our district that there's tremendous pride and tremendous progress being made. And that also contributes to their assessment of the rating that they determine they're going to assign to the district. They take in consideration both the subjective factors and the objective factors. So we talk a lot about the subjective things, And then we get into details on the objective side, the actual financial statements themselves that you're going to take a look at and take action on tonight too. And they go through a lot of different details, and just a little bit myself too, prior to coming into education, I work for a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation, and I worked in the credit organization and flew around the world and worked with companies and assessed risk for these companies for the corporation. So I kind of speak these folks' language when we meet on Wall Street and talk about this stuff, and understand that they're also a tool for investors to look at to turn to for these ratings to assess districts when these bonds are being sold. So we have these good conversations about the amazing things that are happening in our district that I just saw in classrooms just this week. So it's easy to talk about the amazing things, but we talk about the challenges as well. And Trustee Kim, you mentioned a little while ago too, some of the headwinds that we're potentially facing. So we're going to talk about that with these rating agencies too, and want you to hear it as well. And I'll be really brief about what I think some of those headwinds are for us. But when they focus in on the financial statements with us, they look at districts to determine whether districts are deficit spending. And if districts are deficit spending, they want to know if districts have if it's under control, or if it's a random, if it's deliberate and planned, or if it's a random thing that's happening. And I'm always happy to share that this district has a long history of being financially responsible. And these folks deal with people across the country. And some districts, there's a whole range of who they deal with. So we're happy to share that we have plans, and we do show in our multi-year, which I'm going to show in a few moments, we do show that we are deficit spending. And some of that deficit spending is because we're spending on dollars, which are one-time dollars in nature. In order to spend those dollars, you need to deficit spend in a year after you receive those dollars. Some of the dollars we have in our reserve are from dollars received in the prior year, which we received in May. So you recognize the revenue in May, and you have to deficit spend in your current fiscal year to spend those dollars down. So they want to understand if you have a deficit, and we're going to look at that slide in a few moments that shows we have a deficit in the current year and the next two years. And they want to understand what are some of those contributing factors. So we'll talk about, we're incredibly fortunate as a community to have parcel taxes that our communities have passed. And we're spending down some of those parcel tax dollars this year. We're deficit spending in the current year because we had accumulated reserve. So they want to understand that. We have things like ELOP funds and ESSER funds, which are one-time in nature, which we're spending down. That's part of the deficit you see tonight and our community sees tonight. And then they also focus on reserves. And they want to understand each time I talk to these folks, and for the 25 years when having these conversations with folks on Wall Street, we talk about reserves. They want to know if the district has a practice and they have a policy for what your reserve is. And they'll see, and you'll see in our slides in a few moments, that we do have a reserve and we are spending down that reserve. But some of that reserve has been accumulated over time from sources which are one-time in nature. So to me, it's not a risk to deficit spend as long as you understand what you're spending, and you're spending it down, you're spending it in a controlled manner. And just like in the private sector, I dealt with companies who were wildly successful, who we lended money to, or not lended money, we sold to, and we had companies who went bankrupt, right? So you have everything in between. And these outside agencies assess those companies too. And they do, all these different rankings, but for school districts, they want to understand if you have a long history of being financially stable, financially responsible, and if you have reserves, what are those reserves? And as a basic aid district too, they're very dialed into basic aid districts in California. And they have folks in these agencies that really specialize on California school districts too. So we spend time talking about a reserve and understanding what the district's practice and policies have been. And we talk about it in that context. So I want to get that as a little preface, because we have this super exciting thing we're going to do. We're going to start construction on this new set of buildings, similar to that gorgeous building we were at Sunnybray this week. It was just gorgeous, right? So it's really, you're grateful for the community supports. And I know one of the pillars of our strategic plan is to be fiscally responsible, right? So this instrument we have together for us to understand, we work from and understand. We understand what some of those challenges are, and we understand our current financial situation, and we understand that the conversations go beyond just this room. The conversations go to Wall Street too, in terms of our next bond rating, right? So there's a bigger picture to this too. I'm just trying to help folks understand some of the conversations we're going to have. So great news is we have the top rating we can have, and that's certainly a reflection of all the amazing work that everybody in this room does together in the classroom, in the boardroom, and everywhere in between. So I want to give that a little preface. I'm super excited about those plans that are going to DSA. And just really quickly, two last things, which I'm not sure if I captured in the slide, but I'm going to summarize for you too, in terms of things that are on the horizon for us. We know that the district, I shouldn't say the district, sorry. We know the state is wrestling with this deficit. And we've all seen this deficit fluctuate, right? We've heard different numbers at different points in time. The governor say one thing, the legislative analyst office says something else, and we're waiting to hear, I think on a really, the great news is, for some of us who've been doing this for a while, we've seen mid-year cuts and reductions in funding. So we're not hearing that, which is great news. But we're hearing there's this very small COLA, and that kind of changes over time too. And we as a basic aid district, our funding primarily comes from our property taxes. So we've done some estimations of what our property tax growth is going to be, and it's getting close to that in terms of what we hear from the assessor. But what the state's told us and what we've heard is that one of the things that's being contemplated is this adjustment to something called minimum state aid. And minimum state aid comes from the California Constitution, a clause in the California Constitution that says whether you're a basic aid district or a non-basic aid district, that there is a minimum amount of state aid that every district receives from the state. But there's been some conversations about that potentially being adjusted. And the reason why that's relevant and why it's happening is that in my experience in 25, going on 26 years, when I've seen the state run into financial difficulties, the state figures out a way that there is equity, not equality, but equity in terms of the loss of funding that districts realize. And there's really, from a state perspective, there's one of very few items they can still adjust. And one of those items they can adjust in funding is something called minimum state aid. So we're staying really tuned into that. We belong to a consortium of basic aid districts in the state, and I'm going to keep everybody posted if that starts to get traction. But that's one of the ways they can make an adjustment. And in the past, when the states ran into difficulties, the state has figured out a way for basic aid districts to experience similar, and in some years, even greater loss in funding that non-basic aid districts have sustained. But after the creation of something called the low control funding formula, there are very few ways the state can make adjustments to that funding. And that's one of the few ways they can adjust our funding is if they adjust that. But there's a big political part to that too, right? So that's one of the two things we're going to monitor of what's going to potentially be an impact to us from a negative perspective. And that's kind of the most substantial item that is on the horizon for us, because we're going to see this, kind of, programmatically might play out in other ways too for us. Might they make adjustments to other programs we have underway? We'll find out that. But that's to us as a basic aid district, our district in particular, is kind of the most substantial item in the upcoming budget that we have to focus in on. Okay. So I know I'm droning on a little bit, but this is number 25 for me in terms of presentation. So I thought I'd take a little liberty of sharing. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through some slides pretty quickly here, which you've done in the past. And it just has some snapshots for you of financial information from our district, right? Of what the second interim contains. Okay. This just shows you where we're at in the cycle, second interim, March of 2024. Okay. And then we'll go through the estimated actuals and then into our adopted budget. Okay. So that's where we're at in the cycle. Here's some highlights. I talk about the deficit. We talk about the COLA is down to 0.76. And, we might experience some form of reduction to something about minimum state aid, right? So we're going to see how that unfolds. So I just want to capture some of those highlights. Second interim highlights here, Blanca's capture versus as well too. The COLA 0.76, transitional kindergarten eligibility. Basic aid districts don't receive transitional kindergarten funding. Non-basic aid districts do. And the great news for us, and back to our strategic plan, and we've had this intense focus on early literacy, right? On preschool, accessibility to preschool. And we're seeing incredible results. I was in a preschool class with several of you the other day. Oh my, it was fabulous, right? Just fabulous. And thanks to everybody who's involved in making it a success. So that's one of the things that impacts us is the expansion of TK. Prop 28 arts education programs. You know, there's been a slight decrease based on the reductions. And then again, this overall budget changes what that's going to happen to our deficit. We've captured for you here. I'm not going to go through all these, but we capture on these 2 slides a lot of different factors built into our assumptions for this multi-year projection, which you're going to see momentarily, right? Different things like step and column, what's happening with stirs and pers. We built into our multi-year, we built into our assumptions too, what we have offered currently at the table. We've converted that into a dollar amount that's built into your multi-year projections, okay? So this slide just gives you a general fund projection at a glance on the unrestricted and restricted side and what the ending fund balance is anticipated to be for the current year. This next slide talks about second interim general fund revenues and adjustments to that, right? That contribution number is the contribution related to programs on the restricted side of the ledger that require contributions from the general fund on the unrestricted side. And we've seen some growth in that this year too, which we talked about at first term, primarily associated with our increased costs for special education services. And I know that there's still, I know that there is, although there's been tremendous growth and progress, I also know too, there's still a tremendous amount of work to do that ranges from construction to support for students, right? So there's still an awareness that on the special education side of things, on the contribution side of things, there's still a tremendous amount of support that young people need. And we heard a lot of parents articulate earlier tonight too, their beliefs, their experiences in terms of supports that young people need. So this prior slide shared with you kind of the highlights of the contribution. This shares general fund expenditure highlights. This shows the second interim multi-year projections combination. And towards the tail end down here, you're going to see this deficit. And this is what I talked about earlier tonight too, about the conversations we're going to have with the rating agencies. They're going to talk about what is going on and why is this here? And you'll see that over a period of time, towards the third year there, you'll see that that deficit changes. It's diminished, but that's because you spent down a lot of those one-time dollars, right? And you made other adjustments, okay? And then, so that's just kind of a high level of combined. And then this next slide talks about on the unrestricted side. And on the unrestricted side, you'll see here at the top for an anticipated ending fund balance. At the end of year 3, you're going to see here this $22 million. And that $22 million is in the vicinity of 10% relative to your overall revenues for that year. So this represents a 10% reserve. And this district for some time prior to COVID had a policy and a practice, and the conversations with the rating agencies, what they want to know is, are you sticking with that or are you adjusting, and why? And so what this multi-year projection demonstrates to you, and when I meet with the rating agencies in the next 2 months, that shows over a period of time, we do show reduction, but it's controlled and you're still maintaining this 10% at the end of year 3. Okay. So that, I mean, I could talk for an hour more about stuff, but I want to give you just kind of a quick overview of some things. And then this also is just a slide for you of other second from other fund projections of what we expect the ending fund balance to be from some of these other sources too. Okay. So I know I went over my typical 2 minutes, but I wanted to share with you some on my 25th second interim presentation. Wanted to take a little time. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for everyone, what you're doing. It's amazing what we see in these classrooms. And I know there's so many people involved in that success. So I'm seeing it, and I'm really proud to be here with you. And thank you, Blanca and her team, for all that they do. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Are there clarifying questions from the board? Doesn't look like it. Are there any public comment? Speechless. Any public comment on Zoom?
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay. How about board comments on this item? Oh, that.
25 years ago.
It looks like this one was just informational. So, oh, it is? Oh, yeah, we need to ratify. It doesn't have like a V. See, this is loading, so I didn't see it, but okay, no, that's okay. So let's ratify it.
To ratify the second interim financial report.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Oh, I forgot to say thank you for the motion and thank you for the second, but that's any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that was 5 yeses, so that has been ratified. We'll move on to 6A, approval of employment contracts for multiple administrators.
Good evening, trustees. We are very fortunate to have administrators in our district that are talented, that give their all to education. They have strong leadership capacity. And as such, we would like to maintain that leadership in the district. We would like to continue that stability. So we have before you contracts that we are asking for you to take a vote on this evening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any clarifying questions on this item from the board? No. Okay, I know we have one public comment here on this item.
Thank you. We have Brian from, it says Brewer Island.
Preface by saying I'd much rather be eating the 16 bags of potato chips with my 5-year-olds. I'm also sorry to be talking about money again, but here we are. Good evening, board members. Yes, I'm Brian. I'm a TK teacher, and thank you to my lovely friends and colleagues for sticking around. We're here to request that you postpone approval of item 6A, employment contracts for multiple administrators, due to the following concerns. The newly created executive director positions, which were just approved this evening in item 4B1, fall under an entirely new salary step in the management salary schedule. As it stands, the salary schedule appears to be subject to a Me Too clause, which ensures administrators receive the same salary increase as teachers once agreed upon in negotiations. The district has asserted that these new positions pose no financial impact. However, if personnel assigned to executive director positions will receive a pay increase from this new salary step, and they are then further privy to a salary increase equal to teachers' negotiated amount, how can there possibly be no financial impact? This is misleading at best, and here are some facts to consider. If a 5% salary increase is agreed upon, the lowest paid certificated staff at a salary of $65,311 would earn an additional $3,265.55 before taxes. That's not even a month's rent in San Mateo County. The lowest paid executive director at a salary of $214,867 would earn an additional $10,743.35. The highest staff pay is $122,824 compared to the highest executive director pay of $252,726, and I'll leave the rest of the math to you. This is not a judgment on the handful of hardworking individuals who will fulfill these roles, but to say that there will be no financial impact is an insult to the hundreds of hardworking certificated and classified staff who are patiently and optimistically awaiting a respectful salary increase. We ask that the board wait until salary negotiations are finalized between the district and SMETA before approving this item. We ask that the district provide a more transparent financial impact report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment here in the room? Joe, can you check if there's anyone on Zoom with public comment on this item?
Thank you, President Proctor. There are no Zoom comments at this time.
Thank you. We can now have board discussion on this item.
I'll start. I'm looking at the board agenda and under financial impact, it says that the district will realize savings as a result of other administrative staff reductions. So I just want to clarify that that's what it states under the financial impact, not that there is no impact, but just that it's offset by other reorganizations that are happening at the same time. I don't know if the
May I approach? Referring to the step past.
oh, okay, I see. But this, okay.
That was approved.
Okay, so that was referring to item 4. I'm sorry, can you remind me what item that was? 4B1. So yeah, we can discuss that, but the 4B1 was specific. Executive director positions. So that was those were the job descriptions and not the actual hiring of the people in those positions, is what I understand.
I can, what I think bears discussion is when we go into planning for a new school year, we take stock of how far along we've come in getting close to reaching our goals, how far along projects are in their completion. We think about the larger financial picture that affects the district. And going into next year, we've eliminated multiple administrator positions. Actually, the board approved it at the last meeting. So those administrators have received letters notifying them that they'll be reassigned, or in some cases, they won't return to the district. In other cases, administrators, even as early as last week, notified the district they've taken a position elsewhere. And so those resignations or those reassignments or those terminations are factored into about a $1.3 million reduction in administrative costs. If I were to have somebody on the team here at the district office, an administrator, come to me and say, hey, I'm moving, or I got a job somewhere else between now and the start of next school year, I'd really seriously consider thinking about how to fold those duties into somebody else's assignment. So even as we move toward August, there still might be other administrative reductions that take place. And so that is different than my first 2 years in the district, where I came to the board as part of the strategic plan and asked the board to create a lot of new positions and say, we haven't had administrators doing this work. We think it's important to have this work prioritized, and let's add more administrative staff. And that was very much a real thing that took place the first couple of years. But we're going into year 3 of the strategic plan, and we want to make some reductions. And that's what these changes are folded into. That's what's explained in this fiscal impact.
I appreciate the explanation, and also, the concerns that were raised. I think I'm balancing not wanting to hold up this process, and also I know that we've had separate conversations around kind of what that looks like from at least as an individual board member, and I don't know that it sounds like maybe folks in the community don't have that overarching picture. I know that's one of the things that was brought up last time, is just having a comprehensive picture around what does that look like, specifically what are positions that are changing, and what is that number? That we've had that conversation, but I'm just wondering how we can ensure that the community has the same picture of what that looks like, so that folks are aware that at the end of the day, there is a financial reduction, which, could be clarified in the financial impact on this, on this agenda item, with like a concrete number, and also just kind of like that overarching picture for what it will look like in the district office. So I know that we've already postponed this agenda once, and I really appreciate everyone doing that so that the community had enough time to review all of the contracts, and that all of that, it was, that piece of it was a transparent process. But I still think there's like a little bit of like a missing link to just community understanding like the bigger picture around the strategy here. And so I'm just wondering how if you have thoughts around like how we can move forward with this, but also ensure that there's like that transparency, because I'm trying to figure out balancing both of those pieces.
Respond, or if others want to.
So I think for me, I don't necessarily want to hold it this item, and I want to approve this, and I want to move forward, because I think that I just think that for me, we've already pushed this once, and these are people, this is their career, and I think that it's an unsettling feeling for people to just kind of wonder, like, what is going on with my contract, and I understand that there's concerns from people, and we could push this every meeting for reason X, Y, and Z, and I just don't really feel like it's fair to keep doing this, and I think I want to be respectful for the people that are on this list, and I want to move forward. I know that we have several different negotiations going on at the same time, and so I want to be respectful of all of the different things that are going on at the same time, and I want to make sure that everybody is getting what they need, and we're doing the right thing by everybody here. So I'm okay with what we have here, and I will we have.
Echo that. I think it's important that we move forward. I know being there may have not been some clarification around some of these issues, but because we do have more of an intimate knowledge of how these items have been reviewed and will provide reduction and a more positive impact. I mean, we need to move forward. I just think we need to provide some clarification to our public about what these impacts are. That's very important. So, thank you.
I think for, just wanting to give any other trustees a chance to chime in, but administratively, we can also put together visuals, summaries, a sort of a further, 30,000-foot view visual that we can post on our district webpage. I think the other thing is I'll add a caveat just to indicate, even as we move into the 24-25 school year, the visuals we put up will change, and they will take into account a resignation that may take place or a reassignment that may take place. Because part of what we've done to bring this item forward to the board and the position eliminations that you all took at our last meeting are designed to reduce administrative spending. And so we're accomplishing that because we currently employ more people to do this work. And the result of those reassignments and those positions being eliminated is going to have a pretty significant impact year after year in a 3-year budget. And so those visuals can help explain that and make that really clear to somebody in the public who might want to see a little bit more detail associated with it.
Okay, I don't remember if we took public comment on Zoom, so we'll go to Zoom and see if there's any public comment there. Joe, can we check if there's any public comment on Zoom on this item?
Yes, thank you, President Proctor. There are no public comments on Zoom at this time.
Any other board comments before we move forward?
I was hesitant to weigh in because I feel like folks in the room already know where I am on this, but I just wanted to echo everything the trustee said here. I think to folks who may be watching may see some of it as contradictory, but in my mind, I don't think it is. I think we really appreciate the comments that were brought forth, flagging this type of issue. I think that kind of accountability is something that we all value, and to make sure that if the agenda says no fiscal impact and there may be a potential fiscal impact, that is something that we should be discussing, that we should have answers to, both for the public benefit and for those who raised it and for all the trustees here as well. At the same time, like President Proctor said, these are administrators many of us have worked with that we have a ton of faith in. We understand that their lives are on hold as these concurrent negotiations and other pieces are happening. With no disrespect to the folks who brought it up, actually with tremendous appreciation for the people who raised the issue, for SMETA members and others, and also for those impacted here. I do think these types of discussions are helpful, but especially what Trustee Watkins mentioned about that lack of trust. That's something that I've raised ever since I first ran for this position. I do know that everyone here is trying their best. Over the past few months, I've worked so closely with many of the folks here in the district, but there are still a lot of gaps. There's still a lot of pieces missing. There are a lot of internal conversations that many of us have been a part of that for confidentiality reasons or others, not everyone has seen. And I feel like that conversation is what put a lot of our concerns at ease, but we understand that folks on the other side haven't had those same discussions, the same level of visibility. So to the extent, I think every single trustee, every single district staff member here is committed to trying to do better on that front, but understanding, especially tonight with the comments that we've received, there are a lot of gaps, there are a lot of failures, and I think that that's something that we all own up to, and we'll do our best. And I think a lot of the issues that we've raised, even if we've had private conversations, we bring them up in these meetings specifically so that teachers, parents, others in the community have hopefully the same level of visibility to the types of conversations and concerns that we've raised. But many of the comments that we hear in these meetings, we are raising them privately as well in our conversations, and so we appreciate that support coming in as well.
Before we move to a vote, just one question, Superintendent Ochoa, in terms of some sort of graphic communication around financial impacts, I'm just wondering what we can commit to in terms of a timeline and in terms of what kind of outreach that would look like to the community, to CSCA SMETA members, just to make sure that we have something that will impact how I vote, like having like a concrete sort of, because I agree in terms of these are folks, we've kind of put folks' jobs on the line potentially here, but also I think, just wanting to be like very, to not have it be like a philosophical, this will happen, but like, when will this happen?
Commit because we have the costs associated with each position and the current year, and then the anticipated costs of the positions that are implemented into putting that in a matter of days. I mean, we're talking about tomorrow's obviously different. It's not a school day, but we do have a lot of professional development happening district-wide. So this is something we could commit to do within 72 working hours, basically on the other side of the weekend, Monday and Tuesday, put something together, post it on our district webpage, but also send it to our labor partners, and put an announcement on our district webpage. Just interested folks who want to look at the organizational chart and see that more specific fiscal detail, that's something we can do in 3 days.
Thank you. Okay, it sounds like this item has been discussed. We will need to vote on this. I will make a motion to approve for the approval of the employment contracts for multiple administrators. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this one passes 5-0. Can we take a couple minute break, please? Thank you.
If you knew somebody.
Yeah, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna start again. Thank you. We're gonna go to item 7A, approve middle school ELA instructional materials adoption.
Yes, thank you, President Proctor. I am back in effect again this evening as representing Director Kenyatta Cook, who at our last meeting shared with you for informational purposes the recommendation from staff that came with a unanimous recommendation from our pilot and adoption committee of teachers to adopt the My Perspectives English Language Arts curriculum for grades 6 through 8th. You see the financial impact of that. This also includes professional development to support our teachers in the implementation of the program. We had the materials on display in the lobby since that last meeting to give the community an opportunity, if they had, to review the materials and give us any feedback on those. And we're back again tonight to ask for your approval.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board on this? Okay, any public comment in the room? Any public comment on Zoom?
Thank you, President Proctor. There are no Zoom comments at this time.
Any comments from the board on this item? All righty, then, oh, no, okay.
Thanks again to all the staff who worked on piloting.
This is up for a vote.
To approve the middle school ELA materials adoption.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion and Trustee Kim for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this one passes unanimously. We will move on to item 8A, preview 2023-2024 California Healthy Kids Survey data.
President Proctor. Joe, if you can hear me in the control room there, if you can pull up the PDF that goes along with this item. A couple of remarks on district surveys, on district data. I think one of the hallmarks of the work that we've done together as a district is maintain a focus on identifying what data matters to us, on finding the best way to collect the data, and then having a system to analyze and reflect on the data, while also prioritizing understanding what the data is, and then ultimately taking next steps to try to come with a better outcome. And last year, as a school district, we put out a lengthy report, a school climate analysis. Thank you. This has a whole lot of slides, so you're not going to do a whole lot on this one, Joe, other than you can just flip through the pages. I'll only talk for a couple of minutes about this. But when we took on the approaches that we took on years ago, they were unpopular decisions at the time. And they challenged pre-existing practices in our district and also in the region and in the state. And the approaches that we took came from this school board's adoption of resolutions seeking more restorative outcomes for kids, seeking to keep kids in their classes, and very publicly calling out the systemic racism that was part and parcel to the results we had received as a district over decades. And so a lot of school districts didn't take those actions. A lot of school districts passed resolutions that were solely philosophical, that denounced things without building in the structures needed to change what was taking place. And so I think going back to 2020 and 2019 and thinking about, and on this one, Joe, I will ask you to go a little bit more slowly on this one. Thinking about the results we wanted to get is we wanted kids to feel safer in our classrooms. And what our school climate analysis is going to verify for the board and for the community is our kids do feel safer. We wanted there to be fewer fights on our campus. And the report is going to validate that there are fewer fights. We wanted to make headway with drug and alcohol prevention, and the report is going to confirm that students report using drugs less, students report less alcohol use, and the adults that work with our students report significantly decreased concerns with both tobacco use, vaping. If you can pause right there on that one, Joe. With vaping, tobacco use, alcohol use, drug use. The slide you're looking at now is on bullying prevention, and specifically training on harassment and bullying prevention. And we asked the educators in our district 5 years ago whether or not they felt the district was providing harassment and bullying prevention or training. And at the time, 74% of our staff responded in the affirmative. And we asked them last year, and 76% responded. And we were surprised by that. We thought that we would see different data. And it really called out the importance of us aligning the efforts of our support staff, those assistant principals, those TOSAs for restorative practices, those TOSAs for student support, those wellness centers, peace rooms, and really intentional use of our curriculum for social emotional learning. So when we asked this year, 90% of our staff members responded in the affirmative. I'm a data geek, so I spend lots and lots of time staring at a screen because there is a website I want to encourage the community to go and check out. It's calschools.org. There's a link to it in last year's report, and it's really easy to find online if you just type in calschls.org. And you can look up school districts who post their data publicly. And I want to invite our community to do that because I think it's really going to open some eyes about how positive the data we're seeing in the district really is. If you can go on to the next one, Joe. When we take in this data, we want to understand the experience our staff members are having with our teenagers. I should specify, these are middle school specific scores, and we saw a surge in mental health issues on our campuses after the pandemic. In this case, one of the questions that we ask students, or one of the questions that we ask staff, is about the prevalence and the severity of teen depression. And when asked that question this year, 13% of our teachers responded in the affirmative, down from 30 the year before. So that, we're not talking about 1 or 2%. We're talking about very significant systemic change. And again, this is including all the data from Bowditch, Bayside, Abbott, Burrell, all of our middle school staff. So it's really remarkable work. I think in a way, it's a celebration of all of our student services support staff that are in there working with these kids every day. All of our teachers who reported in these results, that sense of progress, that sense of improvement that we see in our data now. You can go on to the next one too, Joe. And the pictures, by the way, these are all kids in our district and staff in our district. We asked about conflict resolution because one of the disappointments we saw in our data last year was we didn't see a big change in the percentage of kids getting into physical fights with each other. we thought, we have more counselors, we have more training for our administrative staff. We said, these things should happen less. And we just didn't see that really take hold in the data yet. So we provided an additional round of restorative practices training for our middle school employees. We brought on our restorative TOSAs at every school and have continued to create new spaces in those middle schools that we call peace rooms, where our staff brings students in to resolve things that start off as something little and become something really big. We went and met with with a group of staff members today at Burrell Middle School, and there's a counselor there, Mr. Lopez. He'll be featured in the final version of this document. And we asked him, what do you think about this reduction that we've seen in the fights and this improvement we've seen in the conflict resolution? And he said, bullying can start off like joking, like two people are joking with each other. But when that kid continues on and won't let it go, to the other kid, it becomes bullying. Now, he said a couple of years ago, that problem would have just festered and grown. Now this kid knows they can go somewhere to talk to somebody to fix it. And he said, and this particular counselor says, and I feel so proud, so connected that I am one of the people that helps these kids solve their problems. And we have Diego, transcribed the conversation. I think he used Diego P, I should say, used the technology to transcribe the meeting. So he and I were in there today, just, couldn't believe, the feedback from this group that was a mix. There was a social worker in there. There were TOSAs for restorative. There were wellness center counselors. And then when we ask our whole faculty, what do you see? We see really big gains, like not normal improvements. And certainly not from one year to the next, but also just even beyond what we saw prior to the pandemic. And there's one piece of data I didn't include in this preview, but you will see it when the report comes out on April 8th. We asked our middle school educators to what extent fighting was a severe problem on our campuses. And last year, we had 23% of our middle school teachers and staff respond in the affirmative, saying, yeah, it was a severe problem. And that was like, we thought to ourselves, we have to go deeper into this work. We have to think about this more, because as you know, as a school district, we have adopted these restorative practices. We've taken really, very hard look at the data we get to hold ourselves to a high standard of wanting our campuses to be safer and more responsive to our kids. And we surveyed those same, the schools again this year, and the percentage went down to 2%, from 23% to 2% in 1 year. And that was such just a beam for us to say, we're on the right track, we're going in the right direction. And also you can just, the survey data falls into a really high level category because it is confidential and anonymous. So when a person takes the survey, there's a really high likelihood that they're going to tell you what they think, because there's no connection between taking the survey and your colleague or your boss knowing I gave this response to this question. And so we look at that data very hard. It's also important because we can look at those comparisons across districts. So we asked an additional question to our employees, and we asked, to what extent do you see teenage depression as a big issue? And when we saw that drop from 30% down to 11%, we started to look at other districts in the region and see that in some districts, we're talking about 45, 55, 60. When you get to the high school districts, 85%. Up and down the peninsula. So I start at Santa Clara and I move up towards the city. And our district puts all of our data online. So when you go to that website, you can see all of our reports going back, more than 10 years. And others, it's catch as catch can. So you're not always seeing like the very most recent data from that district, but you can get a dipstick and see the most recent data that's put out there. And part of what our goal is with sending out this information is to affirm the work that our educators are doing and to celebrate our successes and to continue the practice that we've had of asking what next, what more, with Shara's reminders every time of you have the data, do you have time to discuss it? Do you have a plan of what's going to happen next? Because it's a very rigorous standard that has been set over the last 5 years, but one that we see in this case taking root. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board for any questions or comments.
Any clarifying questions on this item?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a couple of comments. I want to thank you for. Oh, I thought they said or comments. I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's you and your place. Sorry. Allison's like fired at
Yes, counts.
tax season. It's tax season. We'll come back.
Your comments. Any questions? Okay. Any public comment? Any public comment on Zoom?
Thank you, President Proctor. There is one. Marcela Cardosa McCollum.
Hi, good evening.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know if you can kids but I wanted to say work. I forward seeing for I don't know if there's an echo on your but
Marcella, can you speak louder?
can you hear me? Is this any better? And there's no echo on your end? Okay. I'll plug my own. I just wanted to say thank you for this report. I think it's really important. Actually, really appreciated this version where we're getting feedback from the trustees as well in the data analysis. I think that's really helpful. I look forward to seeing the final data. I did peruse the Cal schools that the superintendent recommended, and the 2024 data isn't up there yet. So I think it'll be really helpful for us to have the report that the district puts out so that we can actually look at that. Look at much more detailed data. I also noticed that the comparison of the school and safety climate analysis from last year showed us very different data than what is in the 2024 school and safety climate analysis. So in terms of making a comparison, I think right now it's hard to do that. But I do look forward to, and I'm hoping that we will be able to see all of the data as it compares to the 2023 version, because I do think there's some really powerful questions and statements that are in that former analysis that I know parents would really love to know more about. So thank you.
Thank you.
President Proctor, there are no other public comments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments? I have a feeling there might be.
Thank you, President Proctor, and for keeping us on track. Yeah, so I just wanted to make a couple of comments because it is with great reward to see the kids are moving into a place where we are seeing them in a more happy space that we're providing them. We were able to see this happening by visiting Beach Park recently, and when we do these school visits or these site visits, to see the kids so engaged and watching the happiness on their little faces is so rewarding. But also understanding the creativity that the sites are using to implement strategies that are healthy to their environments is really great. To hear and see what was happening at Beach Park, I really appreciate what they've done. And this is reflective throughout our district. And I appreciate the work that is happening. So thank you.
I'll say something. Thank you for this draft report. I think it's important to note that this is work that is cumulative, that we've been working on for the last couple of years, and these skills of conflict resolution and like talking things out. It's great to see that our kids are developing these skills and like getting to put them into practice with support year after year, and like hopefully in the third year, you know, we're getting a little bit better at conflict resolution and maybe not being so reactive to potential triggers. And I also have had the chance to see various peace rooms and you know, spaces that have been designed for the kids to feel welcome and safe. And there's just so much thought and intentionality behind the design of the rooms, the materials in the rooms, everything being like comfortable and different textures so that kids can kind of soothe themselves in different ways. And I just think it's really amazing. I mean, this is certainly not anything that was around when I was a student. And I just think it's, you know, great that we're doing this, and just want to really celebrate that work.
Appreciate the conversation and the report on this, and to everyone that took the time to complete the survey, you know, our students and our staff and everyone. You know, I think like I appreciate the framing up top, you know, and I know that we've had some study sessions, et cetera, around kind of climate and culture and the journey, right, that this has been. It's been many, many years and many, many policies that have kind of laid the groundwork. That being said, like, I think I've said this before, right? You can set all the policy you want from like sitting here, but it doesn't actually matter until it's, you know, kind of carried forth with a really cohesive, comprehensive, supportive process. And, you know, I think like when you look at this, so 2018, what year is it? 2024, right? Almost 6 years later for us to actually see like the impacts of this in like data, right? Like we are, I mean, what was the stat you gave, around 24 to 2% or whatever, right? Like that's, I mean, only, I mean, you know, ideally that'd be 0%, right? But 2%, like that's an incredible statistic. And why we're all here, right? Like everyone, right? Us and everyone that's sitting in this room, and everyone that was sitting in this room that's not in this room, and everyone that's online. You know, and it's I don't know. It's honestly, it's like kind of crazy to just like, you know, as one of the people up here who was like here and when like this timeline started, and just thinking about like how many conversations we've had about this work and how many policies we put into play, and then, you know, just all the work that you've done, Superintendent Ochoa, to really ensure that the implementation was rolled out with, you know, fidelity and support, and you know, just integrated really comprehensively into our strategic plan to allow this to happen. So, all, you know, all in service of our kids, right? And of course, there's like room to grow. Like one of the things I look at are the stats around, you know, 22% of our kids still feel so sad or hopeless every day that they stop doing, like that's devastating, right? Like when you think about the fact that we have, you know, a fifth of our, is that right? A fifth of our students, almost a quarter of our students, you know, that are still really struggling, right? And you know, how do we support them? And there's been just like great, incredible progress here. And I know we're only seeing a glimmer of the data. And I know that you all are rigorously analyzing it and sharing it, and school sites are looking at it. And, you know, there's all sorts of things happening behind the scenes, but just immense gratitude for everyone that's really worked to implement, you know, a lot of the policies that have been set. And, you know, I know we've gotten comments from our teachers and our staff around like, there's a lot that's being asked, right? And let's not forget that this is all happening after a year and a half of kids not being in school and a global pandemic that just like, I mean, uprooted every single person's life and, you know, wreaked havoc. And we're still seeing this kind of impact, you know, which I think just makes it, I don't know, I feel like you could double all of the gains here, right? If you were to take the global pandemic out of here, but just the fact that we're still seeing these kinds of gains amidst all of that. So I know that it's a lot. I know everyone's being asked a lot. I know like we always push really hard, right? It's never like, awesome and done. It's like, awesome, and here's 5 other things we need you to do. Like, I get that, right? And it's a lot. That's our job, but it's also a lot. And we're asking a lot. And, you know, the expectations are high. And I know that everybody across the system feels that. But I think you look at this and you're like, this is why, right? And it's worth it because it's making a real impact on how our kids are experiencing school and how our teachers and staff are experiencing school by the way that they're replying. So I'm looking forward to continued conversation on all of this and seeing the full report and being able to engage with our community around this. Yeah.
Add, just you brought up a couple things that I want to add a little bit of context to. When we put our reports online, and again, it'll happen after April 8th, you'll actually be able to also see school site reports and things like that. And as you all know, we had a really rough year last year at Abbott Middle School. And we hired a new principal pretty late. He came on, you know, late May, perhaps maybe June. I don't know, our HR department couldn't give me the exact date, but he wasn't an early hire. And we also had 2 administrators that did not start the prior year at that school, and we had an entirely new counseling team. So that's like a recipe for issues. A new principal, new administrators, all new counselors. We asked our teachers at that school and our staff at that school, is this school a safe place for students? Like a very simple question. And last year, 25% said yes. We knew there were issues that we were dealing with at that school, and we knew they would take time to address. So when our principal came on board and started that process of meeting with the new kids, building community with teachers, he did so, and that team did so, all those counselors and all those staff members did so with a system of supports that's available to them, from the structures that we've created and the positions that we've created and the training that we provide. And it's been a totally different school year at that school. It's been a wonderful thing to see. So when we asked them that question this year, 96% answered yes. That's from one year to the next, 25% to 96%. So sometimes the growth is like over 6 years, it's incremental. But what I think the great learning point from this is how our systems can facilitate growth if they're given the right support and we're connected to the work and we're seeing it happen. And I don't want to oversimplify what's happening at Abbott or any school, but it's very powerful work, and it's part of the district's strategic plan process to have restorative work, to have student support, to have additional counselors, and it costs money. And we are investing a tremendous amount of money to produce these results, but it's working.
I just want to echo the comments from the other trustees, and especially to thank President Proctor, Trustee Watkins, those who were here before, as part of this initial rollout, all of our predecessors on the board who took on this leadership, and especially the Superintendent Ochoa. We've talked about this many times. We know how this is a passionate project for you and something you really wanted to see. And I think really going from that kind of ceremonial lip service that a lot of district folks and others, not just in our district, across the country, gave at very difficult times, seeing that translated into our classrooms. Like every trustee here, I spent time in the peace rooms in our classrooms. I spent time with the folks that we hired who specialize in mental health and conflict resolution, and just really love that impact that we're having on the ground. We've met with dozens of students and parents and others who've seen that change really come together. I think if I have one, follow-up word of caution, when we talk about the data and see statistical improvements like a 23 to 96%, we know down the line that that number isn't sustainable. We know that we will see setbacks. We know that in the future there will be incidents. And, in so many other districts, we're seeing communities politicize this issue, politicize the kind of progress that we're making to seize on one single setback and to try to paint the entire policy as a failure or something that, they will oppose because it's not the type of culture, like Trustee Trin said, that we grew up in. And so these are also, every member of the board here supports these changes that we're making. But I think to the extent that we can really talk about these successes, not just in the data, not in reports, I think for me, really hearing the stories from the students themselves who've been involved in these conflicts, hearing a lot of that change really drove the point home. And so not to add more to the other Diego's plate, because I know he does a lot, but I do think one of the things, that's really been profoundly impactful to me as a trustee is now that we have access to these stories, to this information, that I have this opportunity to tour schools, speak directly with students. There is a lot of amazing work that is happening on the ground, and not enough parents, not enough community members, not everyone else gets to see that to the same extent that we're privileged enough to do. And I would love to put more resources behind it so that, again, down the future, if we do see a setback in these numbers, or when you're above 90%, it doesn't take much to fall off such a high bar. That folks don't then see that in the wrong light. I think when they see these stories firsthand, you start to really realize that what the folks are doing on the ground here, what's happening in this district, is truly transformative. It's something that's a major point of pride for all of us here. And I hope that those stories are ones that we can put out before there, is a counterforce moving towards us on this or any other issues, and a lot of types of dramatic changes that we're making here on the ground.
I wanted to just, thank you for the presentation on this data, and just really, give kudos to our district for the way that we take this California Healthy Kids survey and the results so seriously. I feel like this is something that we could just kind of it's a survey that we, I think it's probably, it's required. I think that every district does it. I think it's something we could probably just take the data and kind of toss it to the side if we wanted to, but this is something we've all committed to taking seriously. We've obviously invested pretty heavily in wellness in our district. It's evident in every school site. It's evident with all of our teachers and staff in every school site. I just really appreciate what everybody's doing for our kids. As a parent in this district, to see this report and see the wellness rooms, the peace rooms, and to know that there's let me just take off my glasses because I'm not reading, but because I want to see the people in the room that are actually doing the work and care about our kids, but to know that there's adults on campus that really care about our kids. And it just means so much as a parent, and obviously as a board member, to know that that we all of us sitting up here care so much about the kids in our schools, and that we're helping support this. It just really, it means a lot to me, and I love to see that we've made improvements. We've had one-on-one meetings. You've been sharing data with me via email. I hope that we can share more with the public by school site. It's amazing to see. I love to see that when you kind of dove deeper by school site, seeing the teacher and staff response has been amazing to see, by year, seeing the improvement there, that middle school teachers are seeing an improvement, where they're feeling like the resources that we put on campuses, that they're, seeing improvements in, behavior with students, or resources. And, obviously every day is not perfect. There's incidences and things, but overall things are getting better and students are feeling like there's more support. And like I said, every day is not perfect, but they're feeling like things are better. I think that's great. Like Trustee Watkins said, there's obviously it's not great that there's students that are still feeling, like suicidal or feeling sad, but we have resources for them and there's places to go, there's people to talk to. So really just appreciate what we're doing for kids. I'm so thankful that we have the data and that you're presenting it in a way, Superintendent Ochoa, that is digestible, and that we have this here for everybody. So I'd love that if you can share more and we can do it by school site, do it however people want to see it. I think this is something that we should celebrate. There's more we can do, but this is great. So thank you for all the work you've done on this. I'm just really glad that our district is doing this work. I think that it's so easy to just, focus on reading and math and saying like, we just want to produce like the smartest kids, but really, and I think, that's like what I think if you think about what schools are supposed to do, just teach kids but the fact that we care so much about having healthy kids and what does it mean to be a healthy kid. And it's really, not just about being good at, PE and eating healthy, because we care about that too, but really being mentally healthy and feeling good and safe and knowing that the adults on campus care about you as well. And that the kids, your peers care about you. And so I'm just really thankful that everybody's here and that we are all on the same page here. So thank you. And I'll just stop rambling. Any other comments on this? All right. Item 9, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
Everyone a wonderful break, a well-deserved break, and I hope, take the time and enjoy friends and family and be safe, and we'll see you in a week and a half.
Statements I wanted to make as we're wrapping up. First, I just want to congratulate the Friends of Mandarin Scholars in their first in-person gala. It's, I think, the first gala they've done since the pandemic. It happened earlier this month. I had the privilege of attending, along with Principal Estonina, a lot of College Park teachers and others. Great to just see the community come together to support one of the gems in our district, and just see all the parents who've banded together to make sure that that program has the resources that it needs. I also wanted to thank Melissa Goldrath and the students at Borel who put together that amazing Goosebumps and musical performance. I had the privilege to go to the Sunday show. I think a lot of the trustees and other district staff had a chance to attend as well. Ever since the first time I toured Borel, I've heard stories about their legendary performances and seeing it firsthand and seeing how incredibly talented these students are. I'm just really excited for the next one and just for everything that they're doing out there. I also wanted to congratulate Principal Estonina on her first College Park master plan meeting that she hosted, along with a lot of community leaders and parents in the district. And then some of us had the privilege of attending the Samaritan House Gala. I think earlier SMETA members mentioned that the hygiene drive is happening to support Samaritan House. They do incredible work in our community, just celebrated 50 years. And in particular, I wanted to congratulate Ethan Hua, a former student in our district, previously with College Park, who many of us know, who should be, I think, assisting the district this summer, working with us. But he received the Young Samaritan Award at the 50th anniversary gala. And it's always just great to see our students going on to do amazing things. And I'm sure there's much more to come. And also, I just want to really thank the district staff, not just for all the work that they do every day, especially in preparation for this meeting, but I had a chance to be with several staff members as we attended events, including San Mateo Powell Lights and Sirens Awards Dinner. There was an API Lunar New Year event with a lot of San Mateo County community leaders over the weekend, and to see a lot of district staff come out in a personal capacity, just to be a part of this community that supports so many of our students and our families. It was really just great to see them, even just outside of the formal roles that we hold. And then also the PTA Council recently held their elections, so I don't have the names of the new officers in front of me, but I just want to thank everyone for stepping up to not only step up to their local PTA, but to then also be part of the PTA Council. It's a tremendous amount of added work, commitment, but we're just very fortunate to be in a district that has so many very engaged, and parents who have, so much to give. And then lastly, I think to echo what Superintendent Ochoa said earlier, thank you to the schools that hosted us for our community visits, and for my case, Dr. Gall and the Foster City team, and for Councilmember Stacey Menes and others who all came out to that event to have a chance to tour a lot of the rooms, including the Peace Room that I got to see out there and the work that's happening. And then lastly, again, congratulations to George Hall and Sunnybray on the ribbon cutting ceremony and all the amazing work that we're doing in our district on that. Apologies for the long statements. Thank you.
I just would like to say, have a wonderful, restful spring break. And I also would like to acknowledge a lot of our students who performed at the Lunar New Year celebration. Very talented in their acrobats. It was an amazing performance that they gave, and the PAL Lights and Sirens that we attended, very rewarding. And I just would like to remind everyone to go and see Beauty and the Beast that is playing at Bayside. Very wonderful, talented children that we should support. Thank
you. Like was mentioned earlier, we have some new preschool classrooms that we've been working on, and by we, I mean not me personally, because I don't. We as a district have been working on, and I got a chance to see the classrooms at Sunnybray, and they are just so lovely and inviting, and all the little 3 and 4-year-olds are just so cute, and I just it's just really exciting to see this new like being able to get these kids in the door a couple years earlier than we otherwise might see them, and to see the community grow and hopefully become tighter knit. And so thank you to the district and district staff that have been working so hard on this. And yeah, I just want to say, like, it's really exciting.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank once again, the SMETA members who came to the meeting tonight. I know I saw several friends from Bowditch and Fiesta Gardens and Brewer Island, and I think I saw some Parkside t-shirts. And I'm not sure that I don't know other schools, but where? Park. Okay, great. Oh, was it Park? Maybe that's what Parkside. Okay. Anyways, but thank you all for showing up tonight, and wanted to wish everyone a nice spring break. Just on a personal note, I'm taking about 70 students to Washington, D.C. tomorrow night, 8th graders. Wish me luck. We'll leave Friday night on a red eye. We'll be back Wednesday night, so wish me luck. Hopefully I make it back with all 70. Yes, item 10 is future meeting dates. They're listed here. We'll be back on April 11th for a study session on multilingual master plan. We will go to 11, which is public comments on closed session items. Are there any public comments here in the audience? Joe, can we go to Zoom for public comment on item 11?
Yes, thank you, President Proctor. There are no public comments at this time.
We're going to go to item 12. We're going to recess to closed session. So we will be back to later. So see you guys later.
Recording in progress.
All right, everyone. We are reconvening to open session with the report from closed session. A majority of the board voted 5-0 to approve a compromise agreement with parents of a student to resolve potential and threatened claims against the district in exchange for approximately $35,000 in funding for a student's private placement and educationally related expenses for the 2023 to 2024 school year. Yes. Moving on to item 14A, which is adjournment, which we will do in honor of teacher Grace Poon from LEAD. So I will turn it over to anybody that would like to make the motion.
Adjourn in honor of Grace Poon.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion and Trustee Trin for the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned at 8:40 p.m. Thank you.